is that for number?
We're going to begin our service with military honors. I'm going to ask all of you to rise. Those who have been in the military and received an honorable discharge may perform the hand salute. And if any of you are currently serving in the military, you may perform the hand salute. You don't need to rise, ma'am. More important, you be comfortable.
I wasn't in the military.
No, you're fine. You can stay.
Not Sheila. She has to talk.
You may be seated.
On behalf of the President of the United States Army, and the grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service.
Kolomerkrav Amarma Ikra, Kol habasar chatzir, v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh, yavesh chatzir novel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashva bo. Achein chatzir ha'am, yavesh chatzir novel tzitz, u'devar Elohinu yakum liolam. A voice says, cry out, but I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass, and all of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, and the flower fades, when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers, and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. L'David mizmor l'Adonai ha'aretz umloat tevel v'yoshveva, ki hu al yamim yisada v'al naharot yichoneneha. Mi ya'aleh bahar Adonai, u'mi yakum bimkom kadsho, neki chapayim uvar levav, asher lo nasa lashav nafshi v'lo nishba lemirma. The earth is the Lord's with all of its fullness. The world is the Lord's with all of its inhabitants. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in the holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart. He will receive a blessing from the Lord and a just reward from the God of deliverance. To Rana and to Michael and to the rest of the family, I know who are here either in person or virtually. Your father was an original. He was an absolute original. I guess, first of all, anyone with so many patents to his name has to be called an original. That's the definition. Your dad had an analytical mind, a mind for details, a mind for design and creativity. I know he could get machinery to do things he didn't think it could do. He conceptualized and had vision, and yes, he was certainly an original in that way. But I think he was also an original in other ways, in the way he presented himself. He had the deep voice and the personal presence, big personality. I don't think his personality could fit in this room. You'd need the larger chapel. A big, caring, warm personality. And I always felt there was a youthful sense about him. You know, I met him only in these last 30 years, so I knew him, I guess, from his 60s until now, full of life. And of course, your mother had passed, and he was married to June, and they were just filled with life together. He lived vividly and he lived boldly with a devotion to living life to its fullest. And he had ideas and plans and dreams. I really felt this was a man whose mind was always working, was always ticking, was always planning. He was a planner. That was part of his work, but it was also part of the way he was as a person. Kind of, as I said, an ageless quality to him. It makes sense that the grandkids would feel close to him because I think he maintained that kind of youthfulness with people and great-grandkids. I know he enjoyed drawing with the grandchildren, sharing riddles and stories and playing tricks with his fingers. You'll have to teach me. Listen, life is meant to be lived, and he was going to love and live that life. I know after he retired from his business in his 50s, he started another company, became involved with video production. This was not a man who was going to stay idle for very long. This was a man who was going to engage the world around him. He was very good with people, both at work, and while he was at work, he worked hard to build up that business. Culture was important to him. Art, singing. He created art. He collected art as well. I know your parents had met at an AZA party, both at Glenville. She came to the party with someone else, but legend is that he saw her and that was that. You know, I could see him being pretty persuasive. Lenny spent a year in college after high school, then served in the Army during the war, came back after the war. They married in 1947. He graduated college in 1949. Your mother and father had a lot of similar interests, but they were different as well, different personalities as well, but they balanced each other. Your dad was the king of the big idea and adventures, and your mom balanced him and grounded him. They enjoyed a wonderful marriage, and they were ever supportive both as partners and as friends. You grew up in a home filled with love and with life and with warmth and with support, and your parents were always very proud of both of you. very supportive of extracurricular activities, of sports and music. As he put it, and I think you put it too, he was the den mother of the Cub Scouts during that time. Life had to be with him big and boisterous and fun. I know that religion played a role. Your parents were active in the couples club, and your dad sang in the choir and continued to do so for years. But always close to his family. His sister Frances, his brother Milton. They were close to their parents and as siblings. I know that he and his siblings grew even closer as they grew into adulthood. They would vacation together with their families. And he was close to his grandparents. A wonderful characteristic of this family, this wonderful commitment to 3 generations, sometimes living under the same roof and interacting together. He experienced that, and so did you in the next generation. During your mother's illness, your father took good care of her, at her side, attentive. He may have been a planner, but no one can truly plan for the death of a partner or for a spouse. And now your dad had to adjust to this new reality in his life. True to his nature, as your mom was in her final period of life, he was still making plans. I know he had that plan for Thanksgiving at the hospital. So perfect of him to want to conceive of that. She wasn't well enough to attend, but that was your dad. Caring, planning, creative, trying to make something happen. With your mom gone, your dad took on even more of a role of nurturing. He'd always been encouraging and nurturing, and now he knew he wanted to step in even more. And he's always been in your corner. Throughout school and college and work. Rana, you and Michael, you in your personal growth, your father has been proud of you. He himself did not like surprises. He said it denied him the joy of anticipating, the joy of planning. The joy of planning. I don't know that he or anyone else would have anticipated that he would meet someone as vibrant as June and as alive as June as he made that transition in his life. Someone willing and colorful and adventurous as he is. But he did, and all of you marveled at it. 2 charismatic people who had felt the bright glow of love and then had experienced the darkness of mourning. But 2 people who were not ready and willing to fade into the sunset. They helped each other, they showered each other with love, and most importantly, they understood each other and each other's journey. Their relationship was, I know, a true blessing for them. They made new friends. And it says something truly wonderful that all of you could relish and savor the fact that they had each other. And all of you, of course, became family. From engineering and design to video production and art to teaching community college at the age of 87. Lenny never stopped learning. He never stopped performing. He never stopped thinking and planning. And he never stopped caring for other human beings. Other people were his vitamin. It made his system run. I think one of your kids was explaining why he was special. I think she said he just did a lot of regular things. But you know what? I find in life it's really the regular things that add up. It's somebody who does so many regular things. You discover who loves you because of regular things that somebody does for you. Some people just have a presence that fills a room when they enter. He had such a presence. He had such an energy. He lived with no regrets. He was a man who kept moving forward. Some people live life in black and white. He always lived life in color. He lived with a good name, and he died with a good name. I know I want to call on members of the family. Ron, are you going to be the next? Whoever you like, but I mean, obviously, let me just give me a second here to do the protocol here.
Wow. Been to too many of these, and there have been young people talking, so I thought I'd pretend I was young. They all use their little computers. Uncle Lenny. It's impossible to say what that word means. Anyway, when we heard Uncle Lenny had died Andrea and I didn't think twice about packing up and driving to Cleveland from Washington, D.C. Even though it's an eternal spring down there and it's eternal winter in here, we made the journey through the mountains of Pennsylvania, and luckily we made it here without any trouble. We are lucky enough to be in a position to do this. We get tested almost every week since we work in a nursing home, tested me for the COVID-19. And we worked part-time at a nursing home, and we finally got our second vaccination shot, so we thought we could represent the family to pay our respects to our dear uncle. Something that's always said in our family, I have two brothers, Warren and David. David asked David, where did you grow up? And he said, on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Because we lived in New Jersey when we grew up, and we spent half our life traveling to Cleveland for every event, 2 or 3 holidays a year, bar mitzvahs, weddings, you name it. We were on the Pennsylvania Turnpike to come visit my uncle, the family, and dozens and dozens and dozens of cousins. I'm also here to represent his older sister, Frances, whom he can now rest with his soul, along with Franklin, and represent all her descendants, her 3 sons, Warren, David, and myself, our wives, and their children and grandchildren, and I think there's about 35 of us from Francis Sklar. Hard to believe that that's gone on, but a lot of love. I think we followed after Uncle Lenny. Again, we came to honor him and his life, give support to our cousins Rana and Michael, as well as his wife, June, and Rana and Michael's families. Uncle Lenny was such an important part of all of us. He attended most of our important milestones, brises, bar mitzvahs, weddings, graduations, holidays, etc., etc. He was always ready and willing to help celebrate, help us with tough decisions, and when we had any difficulties, he'd always come to our rescue. His spirit and intelligence, his wisdom and leadership was a big influence on our successes. And being that we grew up in New Jersey, he helped make Cleveland our second home. I'm sure his energy here helped Warren and I decide to come to Case Western Reserve for college. His home was our home, and he helped us achieve great success there. Again, at his home, everyone and anyone was always welcome there. I can't count how many times he had events at his home with dozens of people eating, and eating. He was very prosperous, not only financially, but with love, caring, and giving. And I can attest to all of that. He was so talented an artist with drawing, photography, woodworking, musically, singing, and so darn creative. I can only think of one project he started on Severn Road that took quite a while to finish. I think he finally finished before they moved out of the house in Severn Road. But he was so busy doing everything else that to do something for himself was got put off always. We will sincerely miss him and will remember him forever. I think we all will. Thank you.
Hello. This is very hard, harder than I thought it would be. For those of you watching that may not know, I'm Caroline, one of Lenny's grandchildren, and this is Skylar, one of his great-grandchildren. Most people in their late 30s and early 40s don't get to have their grandfather for so long. How blessed we all were to have had him, and for so long. As you know and have heard, or will soon know and hear, Irving Leonard Kaplan was many wonderful, exceptional things. A son, a brother, cousin, husband, father, teacher, friend, and yes, Uncle Lenny to some. There were some of us, though, that were lucky enough to call him Papa Lenny, and he loved us so. I remember how proud he was of us and our accomplishments, no matter how small or large. He just beamed. Never boasted. His home, no matter which state he was in, was a gallery dedicated to not only his passion, his incredible artworks, but also his other true love, his family. In turn, many of us also have a piece of Papa Lenny's art hanging in our own homes now. After word was out of his passing, and then speaking with so many family and friends, it was clear that Papa Lenny's impact loomed large in so many's minds. It was hard to focus all of the memories and thoughts into clear speaking patterns. For those of you that know, I'm not usually a person ever at a loss of words. So I did speak to some in my generation, the other grandkids, and we all seemed to have the same thoughts. He was just a kind, super intelligent, magnificently innovative mechanical engineer, unconditionally loving and supportive grandfather. He loved us, of course, but he also loved anyone else in our lives that he happened to meet, just because we loved them. They spoke of those times now that he has passed. We really could all speak about him for hours, a lifetime even, and we will. His big melodious voice and stories, his fine whistling, which has passed through the generations, the way he would hold our hands in his. When we went to Israel, Papa Lenny filmed hours and hours of home videos, and his big voice is narrating. He often called us by both our first and middle names in his big, deep, sing-song voice to narrate whatever we were doing at the time, no matter how small it was. For example, here's Erin Rachel, who is going to go down the slide now. But you can just hear how proud he was of us, and we'll treasure those videos. My dad, Lenny's son, also now narrates videos for his granddaughter in the same manner, often calling her Skylar Blue. Seeing how much our parents love our children only reinforces how much our grandparents have loved us. Losing a loved one is never easy. When Papa passed, I called to thank the staff at the assisted living facility for the care they provided Papa and June, and that they continue to provide June. As a nurse myself, I know how difficult end-of-life care is. When I spoke to June, while obviously upset, it was clear she was being well cared for and supported by the staff and other residents there. That is all Papa wanted. The director told me, which we of course agree with, that Papa, who by the way insisted on being called Papa Lenny in every facet of his life, always gave great advice, always said thank you to whomever was assisting he or June with any task, no matter how large or small. He would often draw a little something in gratitude as well. Papa always took care of his loved ones, especially his beautiful Betty and then his wonderful June. The administration at the facility told me that he always took care of June, and when he couldn't, he knew that they would. She told me that his last words to her were, "Please take care of June because I'm going to go take a little nap." They told me that they will keep that promise. Of course, no surprise, Papa Lenny was the ultimate gentleman until the very end. I hope it's a good nap, Papa. Your exceptional legacy will live on through all of us, our conversations, and remain in our hearts. We will miss you. Love from your grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Can you take away?
It's on my phone, too, but it's on paper. As most of you probably know, I'm Lenny's daughter, Rana. And right about now, under non-pandemic circumstances, I would be saying, hello, I'm Rana. This is my brother, Michael, and my other brother, Michael, and my brother, Mark. So please try to imagine we're all here together sharing the love, and this is my husband, David. Before I offer my own remarks, I'd like to share this memoriam for a great man sent with everlasting love and admiration from our cousins Bobby and Annika Krasny, Lenny's nephew and niece in L.A. Uncle Lenny, or as I would adoringly call him, Uncle Leonardo. Uncle Leonardo, the Renaissance man. Engineer, scientist, inventor, industrialist, philosopher, teacher, artist, singer, musician, world traveler, philanthropist, lover of Israel, and devoted Jew. Fascinating and fascinated in all things and all people, especially family and friends, but we all know that. Uncle Leonardo was timelessly great at everything and always has been, except once, when he reached into a lawnmower and cut off his finger. Even that he used to his benefit, making all the nephews and nieces laugh over the illusions he played with it. And of course, his famous fisherman's handshake, reeling it in, and the garbage man's handshake. He has always had a wonderful sense of humor. The man, the legend, the world is a far, far finer place because of you, and all those who knew you are forever enriched. Thanks, dear Uncle Lenny. Thank you, amazing Uncle Leonardo. And now I really don't know where to begin. There are so many superlatives to describe our dad. He had such a generosity of spirit, a brilliant mind, an expansive love for all his family and his friends. He loved his and my mom's and June's entire families and developed very meaningful relationships at many levels. He had the honor of going to great-grandson Jason's school for Veterans Day observances. Jason was very proud to have him there, and Papa Lenny was very proud to attend. He wore his army pins, his cap, and a green military-style shirt. He was the only veteran present from the World War II era. Our early family time was very special, too, from Park Synagogue family picnics at Euclid Beach to driving across country for Gary's bar mitzvah to multiple trips to Livingston to visit Fran and Franklin and the boys to holiday celebrations here, like when he attached a string to a dollhouse that our cousin had to follow up the stairs to find. Sunday brunches included his cutting up Aaron and Zach's pancakes evenly at a certain degree angle. Our family trip to Israel after my mom's death was extraordinary. As you've heard, he was a dedicated caregiver until very close to the end. He loved being a husband to our mom and then to June. Mark told me of a story when Papa Lenny came home very late from a trip to the ER. Papa walked slowly and deliberately down the hall to their suite. June was standing there with the door open. Her eyes lit up when she saw him, and he walked straight over to her and bent down to give her a kiss, which was part of their daily and nightly ritual. He was accomplished in so many areas, as you've heard. I love the opportunity to create music with him and my mom. He sang If I Were a Rich Man, and they sang Do You Love Me from Fiddler, and I'd accompany them on the piano. And he loved to sing all the verses of Echad Mi Yodea and Chad Gadya at the Seders. In our youth, he hardly did any cooking, but two of his specialties were fried rice and what I called eggs and garbage, where he basically precisely diced up salami or lox and any veggies he could find in the fridge. Later in life, he lost the title I had affectionately given him, which was domestically disabled by choice. He routinely cooked and baked for himself and June, and also for us when we visited. He possessed a great strength of character and sense of humor. At about 2 a.m. one Saturday night when I was dating Steve, my first husband, our dad announced over the speakers, which were in every room of our house on Brandywood, "Now hear this. It's time for all fine fellows to be going home." He played Susan marches on Sunday mornings to wake us up. and other happenings combined in sense of humor with his innovativeness and creativity. He rigged the audio system on Severn Road to act as the voice of the Great Pumpkin, so the kids outside could, who were trick-or-treating, could hear him. He was extravagant and magnanimous, but also practical. When he could no longer get Havana cigars, he quit smoking cold turkey, and he used that savings to buy many bricks for the new building he and his partner are constructing. As you've heard, he was a lifelong learner and lifelong thinker and doer. And how many people do you know who started a new career as a professor at age 87? My husband, David, cherishes the time that Len and June lived with us for 2 months while their new house in Cyprus was being built. David and they were really able to establish a close, strong bond, and our dad completed several items on the to-do list that David gave him to keep his mind and hands busy. He taught me and my friends so much of what we know, and he helped my friend Debbie get an A in calculus. He and our mom imparted their core values to us, and for that I will be eternally grateful. I sent him this quote from Euripides last Father's Day. To a father growing old, nothing is dearer than a daughter. I always treasured the special time that he and I had, just the two of us, but it was never often enough. We both look forward to our weekly Sunday evening phone calls. In October 2001, he drove about 3 hours each way between Palm Desert and Pasadena just so he could take me out to lunch while I was at a conference. A few weeks ago, he reminisced about the time he and I visited the Rothko Chapel and the Menil Collection in Houston together and ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches from a food truck in the parking lot. And always looking dapper and meticulously groomed, we had a memorable shopping trip in the pouring rain to buy clothes for his 90th birthday party. Mark repeatedly told me I was the only one our father would listen to. So he'd say, "So when you talk to him, please make sure you mention X, Y, or Z." And invariably then my dad would do what I asked him. I do remember having to yell at him, that was pretty hard, to get rid of his last car. I told him, "You promised." That was on a Friday evening, and on Monday morning, Cars for Kids had picked it up for donation. I could say so much more about this amazing man, father, grandfather, husband, uncle, cousin, friend, and mensch, but I want to leave you with this quote from the end of a book I just read. "Nobody will tell you this but me," by Bess Kaub. It seems really appropriate at this time. And to leave the stories behind, to scatter them in the wind, the myths and the legends and the truth and the heart. And they'll live on, and so will I. We all know that our father, Papa Lenny, Uncle Lenny, Cousin Lenny, friend, he had so many hats and names, will live on in our hearts and minds through all the wonderful stories we have heard in the past few days and will continue to hear as we try to move forward without him. The last thing he said to me was, "Hello, my darling." And so I'll close with, "Goodbye, my darling father. We will always love you and will always miss you and are eternally grateful to you." You sit down. Okay, thank you.
Let's rise, everyone, for the memorial prayer. El mole rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametzei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, b'malot kedoshim utehorim, kazor rakia masirim, et nishmat Yisrael ben Shlomo Yosef Achaya. Shahalach lolamo began Eden tehe menuchato anabal harachamim hastirehu beseter knafecha leolamim utzror bitzrachem et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuch b'shalom amishkavo v'nomar amen. May we remember all of the worthy and the righteous deeds that he performed while in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. May he rest in peace. And we all say Amen. Let's be seated for just another moment. We want to offer our condolences to Betty, to Rana and David, to Michael and Peggy. We also want to offer our condolences to Michael and Cheryl, Mark and Brenda, Lauren and Steve, Caroline, Zachary and Robin, Aaron and Chris, Jeffrey and Jennifer, Jennifer and Jonathan, Ashley and Fernando, Jonathan, Jake, and Sam, and also to Peyton, Skylar, Annabelle and Sage, Brianna, Alana, JJ, Jason, Nico, and Amelia. How'd we do? June, yeah, and we started with June. Oh, did I really? Okay, I apologize. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, of course, our condolences to June as well. Thank you. We're going to pause in the service right now to allow us the time to move by processional to the burial spot at Bet Olam Cemetery. Please remain in your seats for just another moment or two, and the pallbearers can now be called forward.
May I ask those who are going to be pallbearers?